Hey guys, it's your girl Ashley Kirkwood with the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast, where we teach you how to start at the top of the speaking market instead of working your way up from the bottom. During this show, you will hear solo episodes from me, where I'll show you how I have landed and negotiated 5- and 6-figure speaking contracts and licensing deals. You'll also hear from our amazing guests who have grown enormous speaking businesses by utilizing sales and marketing principles that work. If you want to grow your speaking business, listen to this podcast, and then afterwards, head on over to ashleynicolekirkwood.shop and grab my book, Speak Your Way to Cash, How to Start at the Top of the Speaking Market instead of working your way up from the bottom. Ready to dive in? Let's go. Hey, y'all. What's up to the Speak Your Way to Cash family? It's Ashley Kirkwood back again with another podcast episode. But this time, guys, I am actually going to let you listen in to a live video that I recorded. Now, if you're listening to this live video on the podcast and you're like, oh, I want to join your next live, I want to ask you questions, I want to be able to get feedback about my business, then you have to follow me on Instagram at the Ashley Nicole Show, and make sure you're following the Speak Your Way to Cash Facebook page. All right. Make sure you're following the Speak Your Way to Cash Facebook page, because that's where I go live. I also sometimes go live in the Speak Your Way to Cash Facebook group, but enough about that. Even though you may have missed it live, you're about to hear it again. So listen into this live episode and let me know what you think. You can always send me an email to ashley@speakyourwaytocash.com. Let's listen in. Hey, y'all. It's Ashley Kirkwood with the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast, and I'm so excited to be here with you today talking about 3 things I wish I knew before I started selling to corporate. And we're going to talk about the RFP process, which I don't think we've talked a lot about on this particular podcast, but I'm excited to dig into it today and give y'all some good data that I found about that process. So in this episode, we're going to go through how most large companies are structured, why having one contact in the company is not enough, and what you should know about how they invoice and why it matters. So really excited to dig into this, y'all. What's up, Cash Elites? What we do at Speak Your Way to Cash is we help speakers, authors, experts, and entrepreneurs to sell more services using speaking, license their brilliance, and book more stages. Let's get into it. All right. So first off, a lot of people are like, who do I reach out to at a company? Like, what's the job title of the person that I reach out to? Newsflash. It could vary depending on your topic, which is why getting coaching in this area is critical. And that is what we do at Speak Your Way to Cash. So it may be the director of an industry. It may be a procurement specialist that you're responding to an RFP. It may be the director of HR. It may be any number of things. So you really want to get focused on, what is my goal? How am I going to strategically help this company for the long term? What am I committed to doing for their employees? And what types of companies can get the most value? Because there may be some commonalities amongst an industry. So for us, we have been hired by chief diversity officers, chief HR officers, the head of diversity procurement. So director of, I think the title was like director of supplier diversity within a company. We've also been hired by student activities directors. All of those titles have hired us. So there is not one name, and it really matters how the company is structured. So you have like your CEO, you have your C-suite. Those are typically the people who are like chief of a particular department. Within them, after that, you may have like directors of departments, and a chief may have various directors that report to them. Each of those directors will have managers under them. Each of those managers may have assistant managers under them, and under them may be the people who actually do the work, the doers. So that's how many companies are structured, especially large organizations, but it does vary, and the job titles vary. So one of the hacks that I've used is I'll look up like the commonality, like the synonyms for a particular job title. So take all the job titles that have hired you in the past, look for all the synonyms of those job titles, and start connecting with those people on LinkedIn. That is a strategy that you can use right away. But most companies are structured in a way that I just said. So that's something to keep in mind. And you can also Google org charts of large companies, and what you'll see is a variety of ways that companies may be structured. So number 2, having one contact at a company. So let's say you land a contract. Let's say Sarah hired you. Shout out to Sarah. Thanks for looking out. You're going to need more than one contact in that company, because at any moment, Sarah can quit, Sarah can get fired, Sarah can leave. And if any of those things happen, if that was your only contact, your contract is at risk. Now, the company will be legally obliged to fulfill on the terms of that one contract. But as you know, if you've been rocking with Speak Your Way to Cash for a while, the goal is not one contract. Okay. The goal is multiple contracts from that first pricey opt-in. And you're like, Ashley, what's a pricey opt-in? You must not have read the Cash Leads book. Okay. So if you have not read Speak Your Way to Cash, the book, then you need to read it and read it twice if you don't know that term, pricey opt-in. But the same way digital marketers have opt-in, so do people who are experts selling their business to corporations. And our opt-in may be a $15,000 workshop, a $25,000 workshop. It is the entry point that a company can take to start doing business with us that only allows them to get a taste or a preview of our services until they bring us in holistically to work with them over the course of a quarter. So that is a pricey opt-in. All right. That's a pricey opt-in. And that is why having one contact in the company is not enough, and it really leaves you vulnerable. So what should you know about how they invoice and why does it matter? The really important thing for you to know about working with corporate is this. Selling B2C, like if I sell a coaching program or my book, if you all go to speakyourwaytocash.com/buy book, put the www in front of it, just pro tip. But if you go to that website, you'll buy the book, I'll get the money right away. When a company works with me, sometimes they'll pay me up front if it's like a small workshop. But there are other times where that organization may pay me on a quarterly basis. And depending on how your contract is set up, you may be in a position where you're delivering work before you're paid. I don't think you should do that. I think you should always try to negotiate around that. But there are some companies that's just how they work. And they will not. You can try to negotiate it on the front end. You rarely will be able to negotiate it on the back end. So you want to make sure that you actually know how they're going to pay you up front. For my college clients, I worked a lot with large state universities, and they did not pay until we delivered. So before, it would be like right before I got on the stage, the day that I go to the school, they would send me the check. Other times when it was virtual, I would deliver the services and they would send me the check later. And sometimes it would take a while. I've never been stiffed by a college, but I've heard of people being stiffed. So, and I don't know if they'll stiff them for real, but they definitely did not pay them on time. And I've also heard of companies not paying on time. I've really heard of government entities not paying on time. So just be conscious of that. If you're like relying and depending on that money, you may want to have some diversification in how you're paid. So maybe you're not all government, because if you are and there is a freeze on payouts, like what happened in 2020 with the pandemic and all that, like if that could put you in a precarious position. So just make sure you know about invoicing. Can you get your money up front? Always ask for it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Can they do a deposit? Is there any exception? Don't be afraid to ask. These things are negotiated. What's important for you to know is that these things are negotiated. Now, I was going down this rabbit hole. You know, I love a good rabbit hole on RFPs. And an RFP is just a common procurement method. When we talk about procurement, what we're talking about is the way that a company buys services. Okay. So the way they procure services, the way they get services. And some companies are large enough where they have a whole procurement department. And if they have a whole procurement department, that department will have put out like RFPs, requests for proposals. And so I wanted to make sure you all knew about those requests for proposal. It's a formal document that outlines the requirements for a project. And it asks vendors to submit those proposals for meeting those requirements. And then they look at all the proposals and then they choose. So vendors is just a term for people who sell services to companies on a contract basis. You're a vendor. If you, like me, I sell speaking services to the University of Tennessee. I'm a vendor for the University of Tennessee. Hey, podcast fam, wanted to come and give you a very special invitation to join me at Black Women Sell Live, our live event happening March 17th and 18th in Atlanta, Georgia. It is an in-person event where we will be covering all the details behind our sales strategies and the sales strategies of other seven-figure businesses like ours. I want you in the room. Love that you listen to the podcast. It is going to be an assembling of cash leads like none other. And the fact of the matter is, because you are listening to this episode right now, you can use code PODCAST at checkout for a special gift from me. Hope to see you there March 17th and 18th in Atlanta, Georgia at Black Women Sell Live, our live event covering all things sales for the service-based entrepreneur looking to make more money in their business. If that's you, and I think it is because you're listening to this podcast, then I hope to see you in Atlanta, Georgia, live and in person, March 17th and 18th for the event of the century. I'd be a vendor for the companies that hire me. I come in as a contractor. They don't hire me as an employee. I'm a vendor for that company. And so sometimes you have to submit RFPs, especially if it's over a certain dollar amount. We have been able to secure contracts without going through the RFP process. How? According to a survey conducted by ProcureCon, 64% of procurement professionals in large companies use RFPs to procure services. What does that mean? That means that there are some companies, one, that don't even have a procurement department, or two, there are some contracts you can get without going through a formal RFP process. Those are a lot of the contracts that we focus on. The benefit, though, of knowing how to go through the RFP process is you are now able to procure larger contracts. And so some of those contracts may be like 7 or 8 figure contracts. And so those contracts typically have to have a bid process to make sure that there's nothing like untoward or nothing shady going on, right? They just got a process for how they're going to hire people. So you want to know about that process. And then when you're filling out an RFP, it's typically a very complex document where they're looking at cost, quality, your technical capabilities. And they also did a study, that same company that I talked about earlier did a study on what's important to them. For 37% of them, the biggest thing that's important to them is cost. So you want to make sure if you're going through a bid process and you're competing against someone else, that you really are priced appropriately. And if you work with someone to help you to put your proposal together, they may be able to tell you some tips on pricing and costs. All of that becomes really important. After cost, 30% of whether or not you get a contract is going to be your technical capabilities. How can you prove to them that you can handle the work and that you've done it in the past? What are your technical capabilities? Some people, if you're going through the government process, what are the NAICS codes that you have capacity for? Like what in NAICS codes, if you're going through the government process, it's like a little code they give you that tells other people that are looking at your bids and all that. And it also tells the government what industry you're in, what services you provide and you sell to the government. And then they're going to look at quality. It's interesting that quality is like the last thing. That should tell you a lot. So they really are looking at that cost. And long-term relationships are important. And there was another study that actually showed that 77% of large companies prefer to work with service providers who can offer long-term strategic value. So keep that in mind. They want to work with people long-term. That's also why selling the corporate is so cool. It's because once you get in, you're pretty much in. It's yours to lose at that point. Lastly, Deloitte did a survey that says 79% of procurement executives believe that procurement has the potential to be a key driver of strategic change in their organization. So you definitely want to think through that. Like companies are really trying to get more strategic with their procurement processes. They're building up these departments. They have a diversity person in there. There may be a way for you to connect with that person. It is a long game. If you go the RFP process, it is not here today, contract tomorrow, typically. But there's also subcontracting abilities, especially if you're looking at government contracts. But both private contracts and government contracts may have an RFP process. All right. I just want you all to be aware of it and know that that's out there. That's another way to procure business and work with large companies and or government entities. And that is what we're here to do, is expose you guys to new things. If you want to learn more about selling more services, either to large companies or other organizations, other entities, make sure you are at Black Women Sell Live. That is where we are going to be diving even deeper into a variety of sales strategies that you can use right away to ensure that you are able to sell the services that you need to sell to the entities that you want to sell them to. So I'll see y'all at Black Women Sell Live. Use code podcast to get a bit of a break on the price. Little gift from us for being an avid podcast
All right,
listener.
wasn't that interview amazing? If you're anything like me, you have pages full of notes. But here's the thing. Before you head out, I want you to go to facebook.com and join the Speak Your Way to Cash Facebook group. That is where I am. That's where a ton of other speakers are, a ton of other people who listen to the show. We all congregate there and chat. And it's 100% free. Now, if you're ready to take your speaking career to the next level, I have 2 ways for you to do that. One, you can go to ashleynicolekirkwood.com/SYWTC live replay and pick up the live replay. That training is 7 modules, chock full of information. It's crazy. Go over there, read all about it. Or if you want a more personal experience, you already know that you want to be a speaker. You're ready to fully commit and you want someone to walk you through it and save you tons of time Googling and doing it on your own, then book a VIP day with me. You can go to ashleynicolekirkwood.com, scroll down until you see the VIP day section and get more information on that there. All right. Thank you guys again for watching. Please do not forget to leave us a review. That is how we keep this train rolling and get some of the best speakers in the world to get on this show. So please, please, please leave a review. Shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram, and Facebook in the Speak Your Way to Cash group, Instagram at the Ashley Nicole Show. And I'd be more than happy to chat with you and say hi. All right, y'all have an awesome, awesome day.